Okay, from now on it gets worse. Get ready for this. Open Door, a John Locke fanfiction by Nightmare Kisser, Part 4. One night, Sherlock stirs awake to loud groaning coming from John's bedroom. He has woken John from plenty of nightmares before. This one won't be viewed any differently. He groggily makes his way to John's room and pushes open the half-ajar door. John is thrashing less violently than usual, and he's murmuring between groans. Sherlock freezes in place. John is not having a nightmare, his brain registers instantly. His legs have become lead, despite the fact that he is well aware he should leave right this moment. Again, he can't look away. John's head tosses from side to side on occasion, muttering, one of his hands clenched under his pillow and the other into the sheet, fisting the fabric. From the dim light streaming through the window, Sherlock can spy, as his eyes adjust and he snapped out of his grogginess with a rush of arousal-fueled adrenaline, the sheen of sweat on John's brow, and the subtle upward thrusts of his pelvis seek friction where there is none. Then, in a sleep-slurred voice, he hears, Sherlock, spoken breathy and desperate. For the faintest of moments, he fears that John has awakened and sees Sherlock hovering at the foot of his bed. But no, his eyes are still closed, and he is still wriggling in his sheets, groaning or murmuring without conscious thought. It's a wonder his own noises don't wake him. It's more of a wonder that he said Sherlock's name during such an obviously sexual dream. Sherlock shivers where he stands, his own member gaining interest and size in his pajama bottoms. He can see, even through the sheets, the slight bulge of John's own, and it takes a great amount of will not to touch himself, or, worse still, move forward and touch John. But John might wake then, or any second now, and Sherlock would rather not get caught. But it might be best if he wakes John regardless, if only to stop the dream and possibly to question him. Sherlock could easily mask his arousal in the darkness and play it off as waking John from what he did originally think to be a nightmare. Sherlock fidgets where he stands, utterly torn. John looks so tempting like this. So many things flicker in Sherlock's mind, none of which being remotely appropriate. He swallows hard and forces himself to turn and walk out. He makes his way all the way back to his bedroom, stiff-legged, arms folded across his chest the whole way. Once he shuts his door, he exhales. Then, greedily, Sherlock draws his erection and eagerly rubs it, quelling some of his pent-up frustrations with a bite to his bottom lip. Confrontation tomorrow. He could do that, he supposes. Say the truth, in part, that he came up to wake John, thinking it a nightmare, but heard his name moaned and left. He won't admit to staying and watching for a short while. No, it would be a bit not good to say that. But he needs to get John to explain himself. He needs to know why. He wants to know if it's a mistake or not. And if not... Sherlock hisses under his breath as he jerks himself roughly. The lack of lubrication a little maddening, but in the right way to keep him stable. The edge of dryness, softened only by a dribble of precum, is enough to stop him from getting lost in carnal pleasure. He comes, John's name a whisper on his lips, and the image of John writhing on his bed, fresh in his mind. He cleans himself off in the bathroom and then collapses into bed. How does one go about bringing up sexual conversation? Aside from phone sex hotlines, Sherlock never understood sexual conversation, even if it is being spoke of medically between, let's say, a daughter and her mother, the daughter seeking knowledge to ready herself for future romantic encounters, and the mother being experienced, offering advice. Even talk of that nature was never well grasped by Sherlock, even though sex doesn't alarm him and he can talk about it in crime or blackmail just fine. As it happens, John acts like his normal self in the morning, which might be a deterrent or a blessing. Sherlock isn't sure. He almost wishes John did act embarrassed. It might be easier to question him that way. But at the same time, if John is acting as he usually does, it proves one of two things. Either John is a better actor than Sherlock thought, or the idea of having sex with Sherlock in a dream sits perfectly well with John after all, disproving his pattern of strict heterosexuality, if only by a little. Sherlock has hope for the latter. "Morning," John greets as chipper and laid back as ever. He pours coffee and comes into the living room, finding Sherlock plucking at his violin in his dress gown and pyjamas. "Sleep okay? You have bags under your eyes." "Not entirely okay, no." Sherlock relaxes, because this is the perfect opening for him. He clears his throat to prevent getting tongue-tied. "I heard you last night." John tenses visibly, like a video on pause. Then he smiles warily and sits down in his armchair. "Yeah, I had another nightmare. Sorry if I woke you." "You're lying," Sherlock replies nonchalantly. In favour of looking at John, he studies the string of his instrument. "I came in to wake you, thinking a nightmare was the case. But then you said my name, and not in fear or concern as though I were in danger. You moaned it." Somehow, he finds the courage to look at John. The doctor is white. Very, very white. His face, his knuckles as he grips his mug of coffee. He swallows audibly. "Sherlock, it's not, Sherlock waves it aside. "It's alright, John. Everyone unintentionally has sex dreams about people they know. It is not uncommon, even for a straight man or woman to have such a dream about their flatmate or closest friends. Also, because I hate Freudian logic, I don't believe it means you actually wish to sleep with them. It merely shows your closeness and trust in that person. I am flattered and humbled, really, that you think so highly of our friendship, John." It pains him to brush it off like this, but it could be true. By all means, it should be. Sherlock wishes not, but he knows John and he's thought about this all morning. It seems like the most reasonable explanation, and he's sure John will want this. Will want to cast it aside. For Sherlock to assume otherwise would put their friendship in jeopardy, because it might anger John if Sherlock's wishes are wrong. John stares at Sherlock for a long time. After some time, once his coffee has lost its steam and rests, warm, in John's hands, Sherlock fiddling with his violin all the while, John finally speaks. "I'm sorry, Sherlock, but no." Sherlock tenses. He shoots his gaze in John's direction. He feels a flash of angry heat. "Don't do this to me, John," he thinks. "Don't tease me." But he says, "Excuse me? I said you're wrong." John murmurs with less confidence than previously given. A bubble of laughter escapes from the nervous doctor. "I'm sorry, I am. If you want me to move out, I'd understand. I can't lie anymore. God, I've been hiding it for what feels like forever." Sherlock is shocked still. He can't speak. He blinks. With a voice not his own from a body he is watching from afar, Sherlock repeats, "Excuse me?" In the smallest of voices, hushed, like a victim's. A victim of love this time, Sherlock muses ironically. John huffs another would-be laugh and rubs the back of his neck with his left hand as his other hand sets his coffee aside. He leans forward, elbows on his knees, and hangs his head. "God, it's crazy. I've never felt like this for a bloke before. But you're so unique, Sherlock. Even your name is unlike anyone's I've ever heard. You put me in situations and make me feel things that Jesus, I just look at you, and I'm just with you, and all I want to do is..." And he looks up, vulnerable and openly expressing himself, and Sherlock trembles, unseen, in his seat. "God, I'm so sorry, no. That dream wasn't a mind game of my subconsciousness telling me what I already know about your friendship. Instead, it was telling me what I already know about what I want our relationship to be. It overflowed like a dam. John doesn't spill like this. He is usually the glue. He usually keeps things together and functional. John can be more cryptic than Sherlock at times because while Sherlock forbids him from feeling things, John usually attempts to restrain his emotions from being too much at once. He wears his heart on his sleeve and often bites his tongue or shortens his words to keep his heart from bleeding out and over. He couldn't hold it back anymore this time though. His words, like blood, are on Sherlock's hands, cupped in his laps, waiting to be either poured back into John's sleeve heart or left to stain the carpet. Sherlock finds muscle control and uses it to stand. He crosses the minute steps between their armchairs and stoops down to crush his mouth onto John's. John is startled and confused, but his mouth feels perfect. It feels precisely how Sherlock dreamt and hoped it might, were he ever given a slim opportunity to try kissing this part of John. John breaks the smooch and gasps, "No," in disbelief, and then he smiles lopsidedly. "You two? Not just me?" "Not just you," Sherlock breathes, clutching John's face, cradling it in his palms. He smooths his thumbs over John's cheekbones, and this is very different from the night they were tracking Chinese graffiti around London and he spun John around with his gloved hands over John's ears. He ducks and kisses John again, trying to taste him this time, smelling unsweetened coffee and the lingering scents of early morning pre-shower John. He slips his tongue in, and John allows it. It's a sweeter feeling than Sherlock could believe, and to think, this is opening the door to a whole new investigation of John Watson, one Sherlock can feel and taste and smell and have and dissect bit by bit on a whole new level than before. "I must confess to something," Sherlock murmurs unthinkably as he drops kisses onto John's mouth and jaw, unable to help himself now that he's began. "The day I was home and you didn't know I returned until you came downstairs. The day I retreated to my room for so long and you thought me ill or depressed or the like. I saw you, and since then I have thought of little else. I've wanted you so intensely. I thought you might have, considering your reaction to me afterward." John sighs as he runs his hands along Sherlock's ribs over his pajamas. "But you never said anything, so I forgot about it. When you didn't hug me back that one night, I thought you really must be uninterested after all, like I thought." "I'm not. I'm the opposite of disinterested, John," Sherlock says firmly, and John has to smirk a little at that. "I figured as much. What with your mouth on my neck right now," he jokes airily, his pulse sleeping under Sherlock's lips. "You seem very interested, in fact, and I couldn't be more relieved, to be honest, even if you spied on me." "It wasn't intentional, but I'm glad I did, if it eventually brought this on," Sherlock replies with a slight shrug as he settles into John's lap, the armchair protesting beneath them. John giggles, and with his hands on Sherlock's hips, he fidgets. "Hey, no, come on. This isn't the best place for this. And is it even the right time? I haven't eaten yet." "Food isn't required for snogging," Sherlock reminds with a smile as he raises John's shirt and feels beneath it, the glorious warm skin underneath it. Oh yes. He could definitely get used to having John's body pressed to his own. He definitely won't mind engaging in this as often as they please. He won't be tired of it at all, and it isn't the high of newfound love that makes him think so. It's based on trend and probability, and the odds are good. But I won't want to stop at snogging, not after the months I've spent thinking of you while I have a wank. So I'll want my energy for this, and food is necessary for calorie burning, Sherlock, John confesses bluntly, and his words somehow go directly to memory and flood Sherlock's groin. John feels it too, and his own body reacts as he groans mutedly. He silently pushes up on Sherlock's shoulders. "See? That's what I mean, damn it." But it isn't a negative curse, so Sherlock lets up when John pushes again, and he doesn't feel a bit of doubt that John would at all back out of this so soon. "Fine, eat if you must. I'll be in my bedroom waiting for you," Sherlock replies, and he loves the delicious shiver of excitement he watched run through John as he pauses mid-step to the kitchen. "Oh boy,"